If the Appalachian Mountains were part of your backyard growing up, then you get it. The stories don't come from imagination, they come from memory. Real ones. And now I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? Drop it down in the comments. It's kind of eerie, isn't it? All of us scattered across the map, sitting in silence, hearing the same tale unfold. Tap that like button and hit subscribe. It helps others stumble into these woods, even if they weren't planning on it. Let's start. It was supposed to be a quiet late-night drive through the Appalachian Mountains. Just me, the road, and some old country radio keeping me company. But when my car broke down at a nearly empty mountain rest stop, everything changed. I thought I'd be there for maybe an hour, just long enough to call for a tow or get some help. Instead, I saw and heard things that I still can't explain. To this day, I can't pass by a mountain pull-off without feeling that cold knot in my gut. This happened in the fall of 2022, just after the leaves started changing. I was driving back from a work trip in Asheville, North Carolina, heading toward Charleston, West Virginia. It was around 9:30 p.m. when I decided to skip the highway and take the scenic route, just to clear my head and enjoy the peace. That part of Appalachia is beautiful in autumn. Fog rolling over the hills, trees lit up with red and gold. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world is paused. I'd driven that same mountain route once or twice before. Route 219, cutting up through Pocahontas County. Not much cell service, but enough small towns along the way to grab gas or snacks. I wasn't worried. My car, a 2013 Honda Accord, had never given me trouble. I had a full tank, 2 bottled waters, and a bag of pretzels in the passenger seat. I figured I'd be home before midnight. But sometime around 10:20 p.m., just past a sharp curve by an old Firewatch trail, the engine coughed, lost power, and died. Just like that, no warning, no lights. I coasted into the only available pull-off, a paved rest area surrounded by thick forest on all sides. The rest stop was small. One picnic table under a wooden shelter, a rusty trash bin, and a faded "No overnight parking" sign nailed to a post. There was a single light over the shelter, buzzing faintly, casting a yellow glow that barely reached the edges of the pavement. No buildings, no bathroom, just a gravel path that led toward the tree line and vanished in the dark. I tried restarting the car. Nothing, just a dull clicking noise. I checked my phone. No service. I sat for a few minutes, windows cracked, listening to the forest. It was strangely quiet. No wind, no insects, not even distant frogs or owls, just complete stillness. Every now and then, I thought I heard a faint crack of twigs far off in the woods, but it was probably just deer or something, I told myself. Still, something about the silence felt off. Not peaceful, just held back. Around 10:45, I stepped out to look under the hood. I don't know much about engines, but I figured I'd jiggle a few wires, check the battery cables. That's when I noticed something else. There were fresh boot prints in the gravel, leading from the tree line to the side of the shelter. They weren't mine. I hadn't stepped over there yet. The prints were deep, spaced close together, like whoever made them had been walking slowly. I followed them to the edge of the gravel, where they suddenly disappeared, like the person had either turned back or just vanished. I backed up slowly, suddenly aware of how exposed I was. I turned on my flashlight and scanned the woods, but the beam barely cut through the trees. That's when I noticed it, a pale face, low to the ground, just beyond the tree-line. It wasn't clear, more like the suggestion of a face, the shine of light off skin. It ducked out of view as soon as the beam touched it. I froze. My heart kicked into overdrive. "Hello," I called out, voice cracking a little. No answer. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, flashlight aimed straight ahead, hands starting to shake. Then I heard it, closer this time. Footsteps. Not charging or running. Just slow, deliberate steps from somewhere just out of sight. I got back in the car and locked the doors. I sat there for what felt like an hour, barely blinking. My flashlight was now off to avoid drawing attention. I kept looking from mirror to mirror, scanning the lot. Nothing moved. No cars passed by. No help came. Then, just after 11:30, I saw a figure step into the faint light near the shelter. He was tall, wearing a heavy coat and what looked like cargo pants. His head was tilted slightly, like he was listening to something. He didn't look at me, just stood still. Then he crouched slow, like he was studying the gravel. And then, this part still makes my stomach turn, he crawled. Not walked, not jogged. Crawled, on hands and feet, straight across the lot toward my car. I panicked and hit the horn. He froze halfway. That's when I saw his face fully, pale, dirty, his mouth slightly open like he was mumbling or whispering something I couldn't hear through the glass. His eyes were wrong, glazed but not empty, focused but not fully there. I started the car again out of sheer desperation. It sputtered. I twisted the key harder. The engine caught, weak but alive. I threw it in reverse and nearly ran over the edge of the pavement, backing out. The man, or whatever he was, crawled faster now, almost spider-like. I slammed it into drive and hit the gas, tires screeching as I tore out of the rest stop. My headlights caught him one last time in the rear view, standing now, arms limp at his sides, watching me go. He didn't chase, but I swear he smiled. I drove for nearly 20 minutes before I saw another car. I flagged them down like a lunatic, crying, trying to explain what happened. A couple in their 50s gave me a water bottle and called AAA for me when we finally hit a patch of signal. They waited with me until a tow truck showed up. I didn't say anything about the crawling man. Not then. Not to the driver. Not to the police later. I didn't want anyone thinking I was crazy. Back in Charleston, I had the Honda looked over by 2 different mechanics. Both said the same thing. There was nothing wrong with it. Battery was fine. Starter was fine. No error codes. No explanation. I tried to retrace the route weeks later, during daylight, but I couldn't find the rest stop again. I found the general curve in the road, the lookout point, but no pull-off. No gravel path. No shelter. Nothing. I even asked a local park ranger about it. He gave me a weird look. There used to be a rest stop there. Yeah, he said. Got shut down back in 2013. Too many reports of odd folks hanging around. Couple incidents. One guy went missing. State paved it over. I showed him a photo I'd taken of the sign that night before everything happened. No overnight parking. Nailed to the post under the shelter. He looked at me for a long time and shook his head. Post like that's been gone for years, he said. I still don't know what I saw. Maybe some backwoods squatter. Maybe someone sick. Maybe someone pretending to be worse than they were. But it wasn't just the man, or whatever he was, that haunts me. It's how fast the whole place disappeared. Like it was never supposed to be there. Like I stumbled into a place I wasn't meant to find. And now, every time I pull off on a quiet mountain road, I check the trees. I don't leave my car. And I never, ever look for the rest stop again. Because I think if I do, he'll be waiting. I broke down in a town that isn't on any map I've found since. One road in, one road out, surrounded by the kind of woods that swallow sound. I thought it would be a quick fix, maybe a jump or a ride to the next service station. But the longer I stayed, the more it felt like the town didn't want me to leave. And when I finally did, I left a part of myself behind that's never come back. This happened in August of 2021. I was on my way from Knoxville, Tennessee, to a cabin near Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. I had taken the trip every year since college, just me, some hiking gear, and a long weekend away from people. I'd always followed the same path, but this time, Google Maps suggested an alternate route through the southern tip of the Appalachians. It cut about 40 minutes off my trip, so I took it without a second thought. The first few hours were uneventful, rolling hills, thick forests, and the occasional rusty gas station. But as I moved deeper into the mountains, the road narrowed and the GPS signal dropped. I wasn't worried at first. My car, a 2010 Ford Escape, was reliable, and I had plenty of gas. But somewhere past a collapsed bridge detour and a stretch of road with no mile markers, the engine sputtered and gave out. No warning. No dashboard lights. Just silence. I pulled off to the side as best I could and sat there, completely alone, wrapped in dense trees and late afternoon heat. I waited a few minutes, hoping maybe the car would magically start again. It didn't. I tried calling for roadside assistance, but of course, I had zero service. I checked the emergency map I kept in the glove box and saw that I'd passed a town called Elkhorn Ridge about 6 or 7 miles back. I figured I'd walk it. There was still daylight, and the forest, though heavy, didn't feel threatening yet. After about 90 minutes of walking, I came to a faded wooden sign that said, "Welcome to Elkhorn Ridge, Pop 241. It hung crooked on rusted nails, partly covered by creeping vines. The town itself looked like it had been forgotten decades ago. The houses were small, most with paint peeling from the siding, and some had windows boarded over. But there were signs of life, smoke drifting from a chimney, a porch light flickering, laundry hanging stiff on a line. I approached the only building that looked even remotely like a store. The painted sign read Rogers General, but the lettering was worn to near unreadable. Inside, it was dim, lit only by what little light made it through the dusty windows. A man stood behind the counter, maybe in his late 60s, with sun-leathered skin and eyes that didn't blink enough. "Car trouble?" he asked without me even saying a word. "Yeah," I nodded. "A few miles out. Just died on me. No signal either." He didn't ask where I was from. Didn't ask my name. Just nodded once. "Mechanic's out, but we can get someone to tow it. You can stay the night." I hesitated. "Is there a motel or—" "No motel," he interrupted. "But we got rooms over the store. You'll be fine." Something in his tone didn't sit right, but I was exhausted, thirsty, and still a little shaken. I agreed, and he led me up a creaky flight of stairs to a small room with a twin bed and a wash basin. There was no lock on the door. That night, I lay awake on the mattress, staring at the ceiling. The window faced the street, and I kept hearing soft noises, footsteps on gravel, creaking porch swings, a whistle that repeated every 10 minutes or so. Around 1 a.m., I heard someone try the door. Not knock. Try the handle. A gentle rattle, like testing to see if I'd locked it. I hadn't. I slid a chair under the knob and sat up in bed, heart pounding. The rattle stopped. No footsteps walking away. Just silence again. At sunrise, I packed my things and went downstairs. The man from the night before was gone. A young boy sat behind the counter now, maybe 15, wearing a long-sleeved flannel despite the heat. "Your car's ready," he said. "What?" I asked. "Who fixed it?" "Don't worry," he said. "She's out front." Sure enough, my Escape was parked just outside the store, completely untouched. No toe marks, no signs of repair. I opened the door and found the keys in the ignition. I turned it, and the engine started perfectly. I was about to pull out when I saw something in the side mirror. A woman, standing on the porch of a nearby house, staring. She didn't blink. She didn't wave. Her face was blank, like she wasn't looking at me so much as through me. As I backed up, I saw others coming out too, people standing still on their lawns or porches, watching silently. I put the car in drive and hit the gas, too shaken to care if I missed the right road out. I didn't look back, but as I rounded the last curve before the forest swallowed the town, I swear I saw something that still messes with my head. That "Welcome to Elkhorn Ridge" sign I'd passed the night before? It wasn't there. In its place was a crooked post. Empty. No lettering. No sign at all. I made it to the cabin late that evening, too drained to think straight. I didn't tell anyone about what happened, just blamed the delay on car trouble and left it at that. I checked the engine again. No signs of tampering. Fluids were fine. Battery strong. Back in Knoxville, I started doing research. I looked for Elkhorn Ridge on every map I could find, digital, printed, even old hiking trail maps from state archives. Nothing. No record. Not even in the local history groups I messaged online. One guy replied to say there was once an Elkhorn Ridge mining camp in the 1930s, but it was shut down after a fire and landslide killed most of the workers. He said it never recovered. But I was there. I stayed in a room. I saw people. My car was parked outside a store with real floors and lights, and a kid behind the counter. I went back 6 weeks later. I drove the exact same route, same detour, same turns. But the road just kept going. No rest, no curve, no town. Just forest. When I finally stopped and pulled over, the only thing I found was an old iron fence partially buried in dirt, surrounding what looked like collapsed ruins, maybe an old foundation. A rusted metal sign was nailed to a nearby tree. Danger, unstable ground. No trespassing. I walked to the edge of it, and on the fence, scratched deep into the iron, were 3 words that turned my stomach. You came back. I left. Haven't spoken about it since. Except now. If you ever break down in the Appalachians and someone tells you to stay the night, don't. Even if the room is free. Even if your car magically runs fine the next morning. Even if they smile and say, you'll be fine. Because whatever that town was, I don't think it ever let me go. There are places in the Appalachian backcountry where time doesn't move forward, it just loops. I found one of them. A detour through a patch of rural nothingness turned into the longest night of my life. No cell signal, no people, just endless trees and roads that didn't lead anywhere. What I saw out there, and what I almost became a part of, still keeps me awake some nights, wondering if I really made it out. In early fall of 2022, I was driving from Knoxville to my cousin's place just outside Hazard, Kentucky. He just had a baby, and I promised I'd drop by with some things his wife had asked for. A few baby supplies and hand-me-downs from our side of the family. The drive should have taken 5 hours tops, and I planned on doing it in one go. But around 6 p.m., I hit unexpected road work on the main highway, and the detour signs directed me off onto some winding local route I didn't recognize. At first it looked fine, paved and all, but within 20 minutes, it narrowed to a cracked two-lane road with no dividing line, no signs, no markers. I figured it would loop back onto the main route eventually. That's what GPS used to be for, but my signal died within minutes of turning onto that road. I wasn't too worried at first. I've driven rural before, but the farther I went, the more I realized I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. No gas stations, no stores, not even a mailbox. It was just endless trees and crumbling road, and the sunlight was starting to bleed out fast. The deeper I went, the more I felt like I wasn't just alone. I was somewhere I wasn't meant to be. The temperature dropped as the sun slipped behind the mountains. I rolled the windows up and turned on the heat. My tank was a little under half full, which should have been enough, but I kept checking the gauge anyway. Every bend looked the same. Trees packed so tight they leaned over the road, branches tangled like netting. No signs of life, no sound besides the soft hum of tires on worn asphalt and the occasional rustle of wind through leaves. That's when I passed the first vehicle, or what was left of it, an old white pickup, halfway into a ditch, front end smashed and rusting. Looked like it had been there for months. No tape, no cones, no attempt at removal. I slowed a bit, rolled past it, but something about the way it was angled toward the trees gave me a weird feeling, like whoever drove it hadn't crashed by accident. I kept driving. Maybe 15 minutes later, I passed a second car. This one a little newer. A sedan with its trunk open, nothing inside. One of the doors had a muddy footprint on it. The windows were fogged from the inside. I didn't stop. Around 7:30 p.m., it started to rain. Light at first, just enough to smear the windshield. The wipers made more noise than the drops did. My headlights caught movement up ahead, a flash of something pale moving between the trees. A person? An animal? I couldn't tell. I slowed but didn't stop. There was no good reason for someone to be out here walking, especially barefoot, like whatever that was. Another 20 minutes passed before I saw a house. If you could call it that. A small one-story building, maybe an old hunting shack or outbuilding. No lights on. The roof sagged on one side, and the porch steps were rotted. But something told me it was still being used. There was a dull glow from inside, like a lantern or a candle. I stopped in front of it, rolled down my window slightly, listening. At first, silence. Then something faint, a rhythmic tapping, like metal against wood. I called out, "Hello." The tapping stopped. I put the car in reverse, heart hammering. But before I could even start backing up, a figure stepped onto the porch. A man, maybe mid-40s, beard, dirty jacket. He raised a hand slowly, not waving, just holding it up like he was testing if I could see him. I said nothing. I didn't move. Then another person stepped out behind him. A woman this time, wearing a long dress that looked soaked at the hem. She didn't look at me, just stared at the ground. I threw the car in drive and took off, tires kicking gravel. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to know if they were still watching. The road kept winding, and soon I noticed something terrifying. I was passing that same white truck again. Same dent. Same position in the ditch. I was going in circles. I swear to you, I hadn't turned around once. I pulled over and killed the engine. Sat there for a full minute, trying to breathe. I was sweating now despite the cold. I opened the map app again. No signal. The blue dot was frozen. I tried calling 911. Nothing. I turned the engine back on. The car hesitated, just once, but started. I drove again. Slower this time. Eventually, the road curved wider and I saw lights. Actual working lights. A gas station, or something like one. Fluorescent flicker, 2 pumps, and a small building with a lit window. I pulled in fast. Parked. The lights above the pumps buzzed loud like insects were nesting inside. The air smelled like mildew and wet concrete. I walked to the front door of the building. There was a handwritten sign taped to the glass. Back in 5. Don't leave. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. I turned around slow, not sure if I'd imagined it. The lot behind me was empty. My car. The pumps. The trees beyond. No people. But the air had changed. Still cold, but heavier, like something was watching, waiting. Then I saw it. A figure stepped out from behind the gas station. Same man I'd seen at the house. Same jacket. Same heavy, still posture. But how could he have gotten here? I'd driven at least 6 miles since I saw him. My body moved before I could think. I ran to the car, yanked the door open, and started it. The lights inside flickered. The man stepped closer. From the trees on the other side, the woman appeared too, her dress dragging wet behind her. They were coming from different directions, both toward me. I locked the doors and floored it. As I sped off, I checked the mirror. They weren't running. They were just standing there, watching. I didn't slow down for anything after that. I kept the wheel steady, hands trembling. Trees blurred past. No more signs. No more loops. Eventually, I passed a road sign. A real one. US 119, 12 miles. I nearly cried. 15 minutes later, I saw other cars. Then a diner. Then lights. Real people. I pulled into a 24-hour truck stop and sat in the car for 20 straight minutes before I could move. I asked the cashier inside where I'd just come from. He looked confused. Said there weren't any usable roads that direction. Just a few dead-end drives from an old mining operation. I stayed with my cousin that night. Didn't tell him everything. Just said I got turned around. I didn't want to sound insane, but I kept checking the driveway. Every hour or so, I'd peer through the curtains, expecting to see someone standing there. A week later, I went online and started digging through old posts and forums. Found an old thread from 2014. People talking about a vanishing stretch off the old fire service roads north of the park. Folks describing the same thing, looping roads, strange figures, houses that seemed half abandoned, always with someone watching. Some of them had photos, blurry ones, but one of them stood out. It was of that same gas station, same busted pumps, same flickering light, but the post was dated 2009. It said the station burned down in 2010 and was never rebuilt. That picture I saw, the last one taken before the fire. I haven't driven that route since. I always stick to the highways now. I plan for delays. I never let my tank drop below half. And if a road looks too quiet or too empty, I don't take it. Some places aren't meant to be shortcuts. They're traps disguised as routes. And if you go deep enough into Appalachian isolation, someone might be waiting for you to pass by. Just once. So they can keep you. There's something about Appalachian backroads that feels ancient, like you're trespassing through time, not just space. I was only supposed to be driving through to reach a trailhead for a solo hike. But what I passed through, the town, the people, the silence, none of it felt right. It was like stepping into a place the world forgot. And what I saw on that trail made me swear I'd never hike alone again. This was in October 2022. I had taken a few days off work and decided to do something I hadn't done in years. A solo hiking trip through the Blue Ridge section of Appalachia. I'd always loved the solitude of the trail. No emails, no traffic, just the sound of boots on leaves and wind through the trees. My plan was to start at a remote trailhead in Tennessee that a friend had recommended, one that supposedly saw almost no foot traffic, but had incredible fall colors. To get there, I had to take a back route through a small mountain pass, supposedly faster than looping around the long way. Google Maps routed me through a town I'd never heard of, Buller Ridge. I searched it while packing and found barely anything online. No Wikipedia page. Just a couple blog mentions from a decade ago. Quiet old logging town, one post said. Stopped for gas, never went back. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Small towns are common out here, and most are just blink and you'll miss it kind of places. But what I found in Buller Ridge didn't feel abandoned. It felt arranged. The sun had just started to rise when I passed the crooked wooden sign that said, "Welcome to Buller Ridge, founded 1882. No population count. The road narrowed as I drove in. No traffic. No people walking. Just weathered storefronts with their windows covered in old newspaper and front porches with crooked rocking chairs facing the road. I slowed down without meaning to. It was like the whole place demanded silence. A gas station stood at the center of town, but it looked more like a set piece from a 1960s movie. Rusted pumps, faded signage, not a single light on inside. I figured I'd stop there on the way back for gas, since I was down to a quarter tank. Just past the station, the road forked. One direction had a crude wooden sign for Mill Lane Dead End, and the other pointed to trail access. I took the latter. The road climbed for a while, hugging a ridge lined with trees that seemed unnaturally still. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of gravel beneath my tires. Eventually, the road ended in a dirt lot that could fit maybe 3 or 4 cars, but mine was the only one. The trailhead was marked with a wooden post and a cracked map board behind foggy plexiglass. No ranger station, no emergency contact box. I slung my pack over my shoulder and started walking. The trail cut through dense woods almost immediately, with barely any light breaking through the canopy. But the weird part wasn't the silence. It was the signs. Every few hundred feet, nailed to a tree, was a wooden placard with strange messages burned into them. Stay on path. Do not speak. Don't feed them. At first I thought it was some kitschy backwoods joke. Maybe the locals trying to freak out tourists. But then I saw a fresh set of boot prints ahead of me. Deep, heavy, too fresh to be more than an hour old. I hadn't passed a single car in the lot. I walked faster. About 2 miles in, I reached a clearing with an old wooden bench and a stone fire pit. The boot prints led right up to it. That's when I saw it, something hanging in the trees just beyond the clearing. At first I thought it was cloth. Maybe someone left their hoodie behind. But as I stepped closer, I saw it was a jacket. A child's jacket, faded blue, zipped up and dangling from a high branch by its hood like someone had carefully hung it there. Below it, on the forest floor, were 2 small shoes, just sitting there, lined up neatly. I turned around. Fast. My instincts screamed at me. This wasn't a hiking trail. Not anymore. As I retraced my steps, I noticed something I hadn't before. Those same wooden placards nailed to trees. Now they read differently. They walked behind. No one leaves. Eyes forward. I felt watched. Then I heard it, leaves crunching behind me. Not a deer. Not a rabbit. Steady, slow footsteps. I didn't look back. I just walked faster. Then jogged. Then ran. I didn't stop until I saw the parking lot come into view again, but something was wrong. There were 3 cars now, and mine wasn't one of them. I stopped dead in my tracks, breathing hard, staring at the empty space where my Subaru had been parked just an hour ago. In its place was an old Ford Bronco, a black truck with no plates, and a rust-colored sedan with a busted rear window. All of them looked decades old, but none of them had been there when I arrived. I stood completely still, trying to process. That's when I heard something behind me, branches cracking. Then a whisper, not like someone talking in the distance, like someone standing right behind my ear. "Don't run this time." I spun around. Nothing, but I swear I felt breath on my neck. That was enough. I ran toward the Bronco and yanked the handle. Locked. Same with the truck. Same with the sedan. I backed away, heart racing. Then I saw them. 3 people, standing just inside the tree line. One wore a park ranger's jacket, faded and stained, but it looked legit. Another was in plain flannel, barefoot. The third was a woman in a white dress that was far too clean for the mud and leaves beneath her. All 3 of them were staring straight at me. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. The one in the ranger jacket took a step forward. I bolted into the woods. Not the trail, just blindly into the trees, thrashing through brush and branches, praying I could find another road or maybe even a cabin. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I came to another clearing. And there was my Subaru, parked perfectly in the center, like it had been waiting for me. The doors were unlocked. The engine started on the first try. As I tore out of that lot, tires skidding in the dirt, I looked once, just once, into the rearview mirror. The 3 of them were standing there, smiling. I didn't stop until I hit a highway. I don't even remember the drive. I only remember the moment I reconnected to cell service, and my GPS suddenly pinged back to life. I pulled over at a diner on Route 321, walked in covered in sweat and mud, and asked the guy at the counter if he'd ever heard of Bulow Ridge. He blinked. "You mean where that old mill used to be?" "Yeah," I said. "I just passed through it. Place looks like it's still got people living there." He frowned. "That place hasn't had a full-time resident in over 20 years. Some kids went missing up there a while back. They shut down the trail." I didn't ask any more questions. I got a coffee to go, drove straight home, and never told anyone what I really saw. Not even my cousin. I gave up hiking alone after that. Every time I see a dirt road veer off a highway, I feel that crawling sensation in my spine again. And every so often, I get a message request on Facebook. No name, no profile picture, just one line of text. Eyes forward. I block them every time, but they keep coming back. This happened in November of 2018. I was driving from Roanoke, Virginia to visit my aunt in Boone, North Carolina. A 5-hour trip, give or take. I'd done it plenty of times, but that day I left later than planned and wanted to make up time. I'd heard about a shortcut from a coworker, some road that ran parallel to the Appalachian Trail near the Tennessee border. "Locals use it all the time," he said. "Cuts an hour off your drive if you don't mind a little back road." That back road turned out to be a cracked 2-lane stretch called Hemlock Ridge Road, barely wide enough for 2 cars, winding through dense forest with no cell reception for miles. The kind of road that starts out normal and then quietly becomes something else. I figured I'd be fine. I had a full tank, a reliable car, and nothing but open road ahead. But once I passed a faded trail marker labeled at access point 12C, everything started to feel wrong. Not all at once. Subtle, like the forest was watching me pass through. At first, it was just odd details. Trees leaning in strange directions. No wildlife, no birds, no bugs, not even roadkill. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, just hollow. Every few miles, there'd be a pull-off for a trailhead. Wooden signs, fogged-up plexiglass maps, sometimes an old bench or a locked trail register. But no hikers. No tire marks in the gravel. Just layers of wet leaves and silence. I kept driving. Then I passed a car, or what was left of one. A silver SUV buried in underbrush, driver's door still open. Looked like it had been there for months, rusted through, vines curling up around the side mirrors. But what stuck with me was the windshield, a small handprint smeared down the inside of the glass. A few minutes later, I came across something else. A hiking pack, just sitting at the edge of the road. Upright, clean, like someone had just set it down to tie their shoes and never came back. I slowed down, got out, walked up to it. The zippers were open. Inside were neatly folded clothes, a first aid kit, an emergency beacon with a cracked screen, and a journal. The last entry was dated September 3rd. Camped near Hemlock Fork. Met a man on the trail. He kept following me. Told me to walk quiet. Didn't like his eyes. I backed away, got in my car, and locked the doors. Not a minute later, I passed a trailhead with another sign. You've come too far. I laughed nervously. Had to be a prank. Some hiker with a dark sense of humor. Then I passed another car. Different make. Same story, abandoned, vines swallowing it whole. Trunk popped open like someone had been looking for something. I checked the time. It was 4:17 p.m., and the sun was already dipping. That early Appalachian sunset had kicked in, and everything started looking darker by the minute. My headlights flicked on automatically, but even they didn't make me feel safer. In fact, they made something worse. Up ahead, near the next pull-off, I saw a figure. Not walking, just standing there, right on the edge of the forest line, facing the road. Wearing a hooded jacket, no backpack, no gear. Hands at their sides. Not moving. I slowed slightly, enough to see that their face was pale. Their eyes wide open, too wide. And then I saw the second figure, and the third, standing in the trees, perfectly still. None of them moved as I passed. Not a blink, not a breath. It was like they weren't people, just reminders. I didn't stop. I drove faster. I just wanted off that road, but it never ended. Mile after mile. The trees thicker, the road narrower, and every few minutes, another figure in the trees, always watching. My gas light came on. I hadn't noticed how far I'd gone. I checked the trip meter. I'd driven nearly 80 miles since I turned onto Hemlock Ridge Road. But according to the map I'd printed out that morning, the road was only supposed to be 34 miles long. I pulled over, heart pounding, turned the engine off to conserve fuel. The moment the headlights shut off, everything went black. And I mean pitch black. No ambient light. No moon. Just thick, suffocating dark. Then came the sound. Footsteps on gravel. Slow. Measured. Coming toward the car. I reached for my flashlight in the glove box and flicked it on. Nothing. Just silence. Then, a hand on the rear windshield. I heard the slight tap-tap of fingernails on glass. I didn't look. I couldn't. I slammed the car into gear and floored it. Gravel sprayed, tires caught, and I shot forward down the road. For the next 5 minutes, I didn't blink. Didn't breathe. I just drove, white-knuckled and shaking. I passed more trail signs, more figures, more wrecks. They were getting closer to the road now. I swear one of them reached out as I passed. I was almost out of gas. The needle was below E. Then finally I saw it. A gas station. Old. Faded. But lit. I skidded into the lot and jumped out, waving my arms like a man possessed. A guy in a camo jacket stepped out of the shop and stared at me like I'd just crawled out of a hole. "You lost, man?" he asked. I don't know," I said. "Where the hell am I?" He scratched his beard. "Right off Route 421. You must have come through Hemlock." I nodded. He looked me up and down, then said quietly, "Most folks don't come out that way anymore." I made it to my aunt's place 3 hours late. I didn't tell her what happened. Just said I got turned around, but I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about those eyes, about the way they all just stood there, like they weren't waiting for me to stop, they were waiting for me to come back. A few weeks later, I tried to trace the route again. I wanted to understand what I'd driven through, but on Google Maps, there's no Hemlock Ridge Road. Not listed, not even as an old route. I called the ranger station closest to that part of the Appalachian Trail. The guy who answered said they'd stopped maintaining that access point years ago. "Too many disappearances," he said flatly. Trail was rerouted to avoid it. Disappearances. I looked up missing hiker cases in that region. Dozens. Spanning years. most never solved. Many last seen entering unofficial side trails. Some even mentioned seeing people in the woods. I haven't driven that way since. Haven't hiked alone either. And if I'm ever on the road and see a handprint on an abandoned car window or a face in the trees, I don't slow down. I don't stop. Because the Appalachian Trail might be beautiful, but some parts of it are not meant for people anymore, and they're waiting for someone to forget that. I thought I was going to die in that cabin, not from the cold or the hunger, but from something much worse. I wasn't lost. I wasn't stranded. I chose to go out there, and by the time I realized the kind of people I was dealing with, it was too late to run. They didn't want money. They didn't want help. They wanted me to disappear like the last person who stumbled onto their land. I'm not some adventure junkie or off-grid survivalist. I'm a 32-year-old web designer from Raleigh, North Carolina, and most of my life happens behind a screen. But after my dad passed away last spring, I needed something quiet, something different, to get out of my head. That's how I found the listing, a cheap off-season rental deep in the Pisgah Backwoods. No Wi-Fi, no cell signal, no electricity, just a one-room cabin and a wood stove. The photos were grainy, but I wasn't looking for luxury. I just wanted to be alone. The guy who rented it to me was an older man named Tom. He said he inherited the land from his grandfather, who built the cabin in the 1950s. No neighbors for 10 miles in any direction, he told me, like it was a selling point. Only thing out there's trees, silence, and time. It sounded perfect. He gave me a printed map with a marked trail from the parking area to the cabin, about a 2-mile hike, and told me I'd need to bring everything I'd want for the next few days. I packed light, canned food, bottled water, flashlight, lighter, and a knife I'd never used before. Looking back, I should have packed fear. The hiking was uneventful at first. The air smelled like pine and old rain, the ground soft beneath my boots. The deeper I got, the quieter everything became. By the time I reached the cabin, the forest had swallowed all sound. No cars, no birds, no wind. The silence felt unnatural, like the woods were holding their breath. The cabin itself looked worse than the photos, peeling paint, moss-covered roof, warped boards on the front porch, but it held up. Inside was a wood stove, a small cot, a rusted table, and a broken window patched with plastic sheeting. The door creaked like something out of a horror movie. Still, I unpacked, started a fire, and settled in. That night, I read by flashlight until I drifted off. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps outside. Heavy, deliberate, crunching over the fallen leaves. I sat up fast, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. I killed the flashlight and held my breath. The footsteps circled the cabin once, then stopped near the door. I waited, frozen, for what felt like an hour. Nothing. When I finally cracked the door and peeked out at sunrise, there was no one there, but there were boot prints. Not mine. Not Tom's. I should have left that morning, but I convinced myself it was just a hunter or a hiker who'd taken a wrong turn. I spent the day chopping firewood and trying to stay warm. That night, I jammed a chair under the door handle and slept with my knife in my hand. On the third day, I decided to explore a bit around the cabin, just to clear my head. About 200 yards into the woods behind the cabin, I found something strange. An old root cellar, half buried in the hillside, with a door reinforced by thick, rusted chains. There were scratch marks around the handle, and what looked like blood, faded but unmistakably there. And on the tree next to it, someone had carved words deep into the bark. "Stay out, they're not done." I turned back immediately. As I walked, I felt eyes on me. Not animal eyes. Human. But no one ever came out. That night, I heard the footsteps again. Closer this time. Slower. I stayed awake until morning, knife in hand, staring at the door. The next afternoon, I noticed something else. Someone had moved my firewood. It had been stacked in a neat pile when I left. Now it was arranged in a circle around the cabin. A perfect ring. I hadn't done that, and no animal would have either. I started packing. I didn't care if I had to hike out in the dark. I wasn't spending another night there. But right as I finished stuffing the last can of food into my bag, I heard the sound of wood splintering behind the cabin. I grabbed my knife, stepped outside, and froze. There were two men, both in ragged jackets and mud-covered boots, crouched near the back wall. One of them was holding something long and rusty, maybe a crowbar. The other one just stared at me. His face was thin, hollow-eyed. He didn't blink. "You weren't supposed to go behind the cabin," the thin one said. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a while. "I didn't touch anything," I said, backing toward the front door. "They didn't move. You should have stayed inside." I bolted. I didn't think, I just ran. Straight into the woods, down the slope, away from the trail. My legs tore through bramble, branches lashed at my face, but I didn't stop. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't go back. Behind me, I could hear them. The heavy boots, the snapping of branches, and then something worse, whistles. Low, slow, rhythmic, like they were hurting me somewhere. I veered left, trying to loop back toward the direction of the trailhead. My lungs were burning, vision blurry, but I kept running. Then I saw it, a second cabin. Much smaller, no windows. Just a door and a sagging roof. I nearly ran past it, but something inside me said, "Hide." So I ducked in, slammed the door shut behind me, and pressed myself into the farthest corner. Inside, it smelled like mold and rot. The floor was dirt, the walls lined with shelves holding jars filled with, I don't know, preserved meat? Pickled something? My flashlight beam landed on a photo nailed to the far wall. An old black and white image of a young woman. Her eyes had been scratched out. I heard the whistling again, closer now. Then the crunch of footsteps just outside the door. Silence. Then a whisper. "Found you." The door slammed open. I don't remember what happened next clearly. I lunged with my knife. There was shouting, blood, pain, then black. When I came to, it was morning. Light streamed through a gap in the cabin roof. I was alone. No footsteps. No bodies. No blood. Just my pack lying in the corner untouched. I stumbled out and somehow found the main trail, hiking for hours until I finally saw my car through the trees. I didn't report it. I didn't tell Tom. I didn't tell anyone for a long time. Because when I looked up the property on a real map, just to make sense of where I'd gone, I couldn't find it. The road I'd parked on doesn't exist. The coordinates lead to a blank patch of forest labeled private logging area, no public access. Weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid. The same black and white photo I'd seen in that second cabin. Same scratched out eyes. But this time, there was something written in red marker across the bottom. "Now you know why no one comes back." I should have never taken that detour. The gas station guy said not to go through Coleridge, that the town was shut down decades ago, and that nothing's left but hollow buildings and bad memories. But I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Now I can't close my eyes without hearing them in the trees. I still see the light from that mine shaft, flickering where no power should exist. And I still remember the way those people looked at me, like I was already dead. Back in 2021, I was taking a solo road trip through West Virginia and into Kentucky, with plans to camp in the Daniel Boone National Forest. I'd been cooped up for months during lockdown, and I wanted a break from screens and noise. Just me, my Jeep, and some backwoods peace and quiet. I took back roads intentionally, small towns, old diners, forgotten gas stations. There was something peaceful about that part of Appalachia. Raw, honest, unfiltered, but it's also a place that doesn't like to be messed with. About 4 hours into my drive, I hit a stretch of road where my GPS dropped out. My printed map showed a shortcut through an old mining town called Coleridge. It was supposed to shave off 20 minutes. The guy at the station just outside Elkins warned me. That town's not on any map worth reading anymore. They closed the last mine in '92 after some folks went missing. Leave it be. I nodded and thanked him, but I took the road anyway. Curiosity always was my problem. The road to Coleridge was barely paved, mostly gravel, narrow, hemmed in by dense forest. The deeper I went, the darker it got. It wasn't even sunset yet, but the tree cover made it feel like twilight. No traffic, no wildlife sounds, just my tires crunching rock and the occasional creak of my suspension. I kept telling myself it was fine, just an old mining town, nothing spooky about that. About 20 minutes in, I came around a bend and saw the town. It looked like something from a black and white photo. Rows of collapsing houses, rusted mailboxes, a church steeple leaning hard to the left. A faded wooden sign stood crooked by the roadside. Welcome to Coleridge, established 1891. It felt like the kind of place where even time had packed up and left. I slowed to a crawl. My gut told me to keep driving, but I couldn't help it. I parked next to what looked like an old post office and stepped out. The air was thick, musty, like it hadn't moved in decades. There was no wind, no birds, no bugs, just silence. I took a few steps toward a general store, glass windows long shattered, the door hanging open, and that's when I saw the first one. A man standing at the far end of the street, dressed in dark clothes, pale face, not moving, just watching. I waved awkwardly, no response. Then I noticed another, and another, at least 5 people, all standing in different places, yards, doorways, rooftops. All of them perfectly still, all staring in my direction. I felt a chill creep up my back. I called out, "Hey, I'm just passing through. Didn't mean to trespass." Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just their eyes locked on me like they were waiting for something. I turned to get back in the Jeep, and the driver's side door was closed. I had left it open. I was sure of it. I rushed back, heart hammering, only to find the keys gone from the ignition. I looked around, panicked. The people were gone. Every last one of them. Not a sound. Just an empty road and my unlocked, dead Jeep. I don't scare easy, but in that moment I felt hunted. I backed up slowly toward the edge of town, hoping to find cell signal or at least a road out on foot. That's when I heard it, a rhythmic metallic clang. Faint at first, then louder, like a hammer hitting iron. It was coming from the mine. I didn't want to go anywhere near that shaft, but something told me that if I didn't move, if I stayed out in the open, I wouldn't get another chance. So I cut behind the old church, past a school bus swallowed by vines, and into the trees. I figured I could loop around and follow the mine cart track back to the road, but the track led down, toward the mine entrance. As I moved along it, the air grew colder. I heard whispers, faint, like wind brushing over voices. Except there was no wind. The shaft entrance was boarded up, but someone, or something, had pulled the planks loose recently. A single lantern flickered just inside, and beside it was a shoe. My shoe. The one I'd left in my back seat the day before. Mud-caked, untied, as if someone had rummaged through my vehicle and left it for me to find. That's when I realized they'd been in my Jeep while I was walking around. That hammering sound started again, closer now, right behind the mine wall. I turned to run, but the path I'd come down was gone, completely overgrown, like it had never existed. I was trapped. I ran into the mine. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it would loop around. Maybe I thought I could hide. The air inside was damp, the walls slick with condensation. The wooden beams creaked overhead, and the ground was soft with coal dust. I moved fast, turning left, then right, trying to outrun whatever was behind me. Then the lanterns started lighting one by one, lining the tunnel ahead. They were old, glass and metal, but glowing like someone had just lit them. I stopped. Footsteps echoed behind me. Not hurried, not loud, just steady. I turned off my flashlight and pressed myself into a side alcove, breathing through my mouth to stay quiet. That's when I saw the reflection, someone holding a pickaxe, walking past, eyes milky white, face gaunt like they hadn't seen sunlight in years. He didn't see me, just kept walking, but behind him were more. For 5, maybe 6. All dressed in old mining clothes. Some had broken helmets. One dragged a chain behind him. None of them spoke. None of them looked alive. But they were real as the dirt under my feet and the breath fogging in front of me. Once they passed, I waited until their footsteps faded. Then I bolted the other way. But the tunnels had shifted. No matter how far I ran, I kept ending up at the same place, the main chamber, with the broken cart and the lantern. I was being herded. Every turn was a dead end. Every passage curved back in on itself. I collapsed against the wall, out of breath. And then from the shadows, a voice whispered right beside my ear. You weren't supposed to leave the road. I don't remember getting out. I woke up at the base of a ravine, lying in a pile of dead leaves, sun peeking through the trees. My face was scratched, shirt torn, and I was freezing. But my Jeep was just up the hill. Door open, keys in the ignition. Everything inside was as I'd left it, except the rearview mirror. It was gone. Snapped clean off. I drove until I found signal and GPS. I was 12 miles east of where Coleridge should have been. But when I went back days later, with 2 friends and a local guide, there was nothing. No houses, no road, no mine, just woods. Even the welcome sign was gone. The only proof I have is a photo I didn't take, found in my glove box a week after I got home. A Polaroid, grainy, blurry, but unmistakable. It shows me standing in front of that mine shaft, lantern flickering, and behind me shadows, at least 5 of them. In 2019, I worked a short-term contract with the State Forestry Department in northern Idaho. My job was simple: spend 3 nights in an old fire lookout tower on Twin Elk Ridge and report any sign of smoke, lightning strikes, or unusual activity. It was off-season September, when fire risk was still moderate, but crews were being scaled down. It was mostly boring work, and I liked it that way. The tower was a narrow wooden cabin perched on steel legs about 60 feet above a ridge clearing. There was no electricity, no plumbing, and barely any reception, just a hand radio, a cot, a propane stove, and a view of endless green. The previous lookout, a guy named Carson, had left abruptly the week before my shift. They said he'd radioed in a complaint about trespassers on the second night and quit the next morning. I figured it was burnout. These places make your mind play tricks on you. That's what I told myself. My first night up there was quiet. Too quiet. No bugs, no wind, no owl calls. Just the occasional creak of the tower and the distant rustling of trees. I tried to sleep, but something about the silence made me uneasy, like the forest was holding its breath. I told myself it was just nerves. I made coffee, checked the radio, dead silent, and journaled a bit to calm myself. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard something on the stairs. Not wind, not animals. Steps. Slow. Metallic. One at a time. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it through the narrow window facing the stairs. Nothing. Just darkness and empty forest. Still, I stepped out onto the small balcony with my light. I swept it downward, but the stairs curved below and disappeared into shadow. I called out, "Hello? This is state property. You need to leave." No response. Just silence. I stayed outside for another 10 minutes, then reluctantly went back in. I locked the trapdoor in the floor and shoved a crate on top, just in case. I didn't sleep much. Day 2 started normal. I scanned the tree line with binoculars every hour, logged my notes, made coffee, and tried not to think about the footsteps. But something gnawed at me like I was being watched. Late afternoon, I spotted something unusual through the binoculars. A tall figure standing still near a dead pine tree about 300 yards downslope. Too far to see details, but definitely a person. No hiking trail down there. No reason anyone should be in that patch of woods. I radioed base, but the signal was static. When I checked again, the figure was gone. That night, the tapping came back. Around 1:50 a.m. this time. This time, it didn't stop at the bottom of the stairs. It climbed. Clang. 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 Step by step, steel on steel. Slow. Deliberate. I could feel each impact through the frame. I shut off my light. Sat against the far wall, knife in hand, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped just below the hatch. Silence. Then, tap. 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 Right under the floor. A hand, or something, gently tapping the underside of the locked hatch. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. Just waited in the dark until sunrise. When it came, I burst onto the balcony and scanned the stairs. Empty, but there were smears on the rails. Dirt, maybe, or ash. I finally made contact with base around noon and reported possible trespassers. The guy on the other end paused, then asked, "You said you're in Tower 9 on Twin Elk?" "Yeah," he exhaled. "That tower's supposed to be closed after last week. I thought you were in 12. "I was assigned to 9, I said. A long pause. "All right. Just sit tight. Someone will be up there tomorrow." Tomorrow. I didn't know if I'd make it until then. That third night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit. I paced with my flashlight and knife, every window shut tight. I kept checking the trapdoor every 10 minutes, making sure the crate stayed heavy on top. Around 3:10 a.m., the radio crackled to life. Just static at first. Then a voice. My voice. "Don't look outside. Don't look outside. Don't look outside." Repeating. Exactly how I'd spoken aloud to myself an hour earlier. Word for word. Same rhythm. Same fear. I backed away from the radio. The flashlight flickered, then died. I slammed it against my palm. Nothing. Then footsteps. Faster this time. No sneaking. No tapping. Stomping. Something ran up the stairs. Boom. 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 I grabbed the propane lantern and lit it just in time to see the hatch bend upward. Not a little. Almost lifted. The crate on top shifted. Then someone, started speaking beneath the floor. Low. Guttural. In a language I didn't recognize. Rhythmic. Repetitive. I lost it. I started yelling, banging on the walls, anything to make it stop. It did. Silence returned. Then, I heard a voice outside the window. It was my supervisor. "Hey, you up there? We're early. Open up." Relief hit me like a wave. I rushed to the door, then froze. They were calling from the ground. But there was no engine. No radio chirp. No second voice. And when I peered down, there was no one there. Just the same clearing. Same empty woods. I stepped back inside and barred the door. That voice kept calling for another hour. Sunrise came slow. When it did, I opened the hatch, knife in hand, and climbed down the ladder fast. No footprints. No smears. Just quiet forest. I ran the half-mile trail back to my truck. It was untouched, parked exactly where I left it. When I got to the station, my supervisor was waiting. "Jesus, you look like hell," he said. "I need off that tower," I muttered. He blinked. I didn't send anyone to 9. I told him everything. He listened carefully, never interrupted. When I was done, he walked into the back and returned with a manila folder. Inside were incident logs. Not official reports, just scribbled notes from past workers. Page after page of similar stories. Footsteps on the stairs, voices on the radio, figures in the woods. Some refused to ever speak about it. Others quit forestry altogether. One line was underlined in red ink. "Don't respond to the voice that sounds like you." I haven't gone back since. I don't even go near fire towers anymore. Can't look at them without shaking. A month later, I got a padded envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a tape recorder. I pressed play. It was my voice, repeating those same words. "Don't look outside. Don't look outside. Don't look outside."